I would like to thank RSSDI organizing team, especially Dr. Bansi Sabu sir, Dr. Sanjay Agarwal, and Dr. Vasant Kumar sir. And thanks to Dr. Ami Sangvi for giving me my lecture before her. So I'll be speaking next 20 minutes. I'll try to finish within 20 minutes. My topic is NASH and type 2 diabetes. So it's not working. The term NASH was first coined by Dr. Ludwig 3 decades ago to describe a unique entity which was characterized by a fatty changes with the lobular hepatitis in the absence of a history of alcoholism. The estimated prevalence of NASH has now reached an average of 25%, and it is of no surprise that this NAFLD prevalence is very similar to that of obesity, since increased calorie intake, sedentary lifestyle, and the consequent development of obesity are the major risk factor for the development of NASH. Several studies have shown that the individual with the NASH are at a higher risk of developing type 2 diabetes, and it is estimated that 75% of type 2 diabetic patients present some form of non-alcoholic fatty liver of different degrees. A recent meta-analysis, almost of 3 lakh individuals, have shown that the risk of incident of diabetes is more than twofold higher in the individual with the NAFLD. It is of two types. Primary is occurred with the association of metabolic syndrome related conditions like obesity, type 2 diabetes, and the hyperlipidemia. And the secondary NASH occurs after the obesity related intestinal surgeries, rapid weight loss in obese, total parental nutrition therapy, treatment with some drugs like tamoxifen, amiodarone, and lipodystrophy or the Wilson disease. This is the multi-hit hypothesis for NASH. In a normal liver, if there is a risk factors like metabolic syndrome is present, then there is insulin resistance and activation of interaction between the so many cytokines, adipokines, oxidative stress, and all. This is the calculation of insulin resistance by the HOMA-IR or the quick index. As far as the pathophysiology, there is an alteration in glucose and lipid metabolism. Insulin resistance and insulin secretion explains the close association between the NAFLD and the type 2 diabetes. And moreover, both the patient with the NAFLD and type 2 diabetes often share the comorbidities associated with the metabolic syndrome, namely the fasting hyperglycemia, hypertension, hypertriglyceridemia, and low SDL with abdominal fat accumulation. The individuals who are in NAFLD are more insulin resistant than those without the NAFLD, even if they are lean and without the diabetes. This picture longitudinally and cross-sectional showing studies that increased insulin resistance is the earliest detectable abnormality in both the pre-diabetes or the over type 2 diabetes. Pancreas respond to increased IR by the secreting more and more insulin, and the liver decreases insulin clearance in order to increase the peripheral insulin concentration and prevent the development of diabetes. In NAFLD, the IR present in muscle, liver, and the adipose tissue. At the consequences, the hepatic glucose production and the adipose tissue lipolysis are the only in part suppressed by the insulin, resulting in the higher fasting glucose and free fatty acid concentrations, increasing the risk of type 2 diabetes in these patients. To overcome this IR, the pancreas is stimulated to secrete more insulin, and this explains the higher insulin concentration observed in the individuals with the IR. High peripheral insulin concentration occurs not only because of the increased pancreatic insulin secretion, but also because of the decreased insulin clearance by the liver, which allows more insulin to reach the peripheral circulation. Initial studies on the natural history of diabetes indicate that the hyperglycemia results from an imbalance between the secretion insulin and the sensitivity of insulin. There is no doubt that the majority of patients with the NAFLD are insulin resistant even if they are non-obese, and however, most of the individuals with the NASH do not develop hyperglycemia despite displaying higher insulin concentration, and this is because of liver, as it accumulates the triglyceride and the toxic lipid derived metabolites, which becomes resistant to the effect of insulin and decreases its capacity to clear the insulin, thus increasing the peripheral insulin concentration. And in response to change in the glucose concentration, insulin is initially secreted rapidly in the quantity proportional to the rise in glucose concentration, that is within minutes, and this is the first phase, and then a dose response to plasma glucose concentration, which is the second phase. In the progression from the normal glucose tolerance to the impaired, the first phase is already reduced and the total amount of insulin delivered to the periphery is still insufficient to clear that glucose despite high insulin secretion rates and plasma insulin concentration. This is referred to as a impaired beta cell function. And together with this IR, the impaired beta cell function explain the high postprandial glucose concentrations. The hepatic steatosis is associated with the alteration in both lipid and glucose metabolism. This glucose is produced from the hepatic glycogenolysis or the gluconeogenesis. That is by synthesis from the amino acid, glycerol or the lactate. In patient with this hepatic steatosis, the fasting glucose production and in particular gluconeogenesis are elevated despite high insulin levels, which is leading to fasting or the postprandial hyperglycemia. The patient with either diabetes or NAFLD have an increased gluconeogenesis that contributes to excessive glucose production and hepatic IR. However, the increased gluconeogenesis does not seem to be related to the amount of hepatic triglyceride, and thus this excess gluconeogenesis is probably a consequence rather than a cause of hepatic insulin resistance. Since increased gluconeogenesis is closely associated with the excess gluconeogenic substrate that overload the liver rather than the increased hepatic fat accumulation. Excess gluconeogenic substrate can also be used to synthesis glycerol D novo via the glyceroneogenesis, that is in turn to use for the triglyceride synthesis. And this pathway previously not considered is indeed accelerated in individuals with the NAFLD. So come to the role of dysfunctional adipose tissue and the lipotoxicity. There is increased adiposity as often found in NASH and type 2 diabetes is associated with the adipocyte insulin resistance and the dysfunction, and this results in the excess free fatty acid release into the bloodstream and predisposed to the lipotoxicity. That is why when free fatty acid overflow from the adipose tissue, that leads to excess lipid intake by tissues such as the liver, pancreas or the muscles. And this overflow of fatty acid to the liver has also been associated with the increased cellular level of toxic lipids such as a diacylglycerol and long chain fatty acyl coenzyme A, which is involved in the inflammatory pathways. And yes, of course, the glucotoxicity in type 2 diabetes also often develops from the excess glucose production or an excess consumption of carbohydrates and sugar in the presence of the decreased glucose clearance. And the most common, that DNL, de novo lipogenesis, is increased in the presence of hyperglycemia and or as a consequence of excess carbohydrate intake and can favor the synthesis of palmitate. Some features have been suggested that there is an inherent component involving gene related to the NASH, and these are the determination of sensitivity to insulin, hepatic lipid storage, oxidation or release into the blood flow, obesity and its distribution, regulation of hepatic iron levels and oxidative stress generation, and some cytokinin synthesis is also there. So now come to the diagnosis of NASH with type 2 diabetes. There are history and examination. We have to exclude the drug induced liver, exclude the etiology, and there should be no significant alcohol consumption also. In males it should be a less than 30 gram per day, and in females it should be less than 20 gram per day. And then there is a non-invasive liver screen like ultrasonography, and for the severity of liver fibrosis we have to do the enhanced liver fibrosis test, magnetic resonance elastography, and VCT, shear wave, and so many. And the most common, most confirmatory diagnosis is by the liver biopsy. Now come to the management and NASH of the type 2 diabetes. At present, there is no widely accepted approach to treat the NASH. Only therapeutic alternatives are to correct the obesity with the hypocaloric diets and the physical exercise. We should keep in mind that rapid weight loss and long-lasting fasting periods should be avoided, since they lead to an increase in the free flow of free fatty acid to the liver, and that are the causative agent for the NASH. And definitely control of hyperglycemia either with the diet, insulin or the oral anti-diabetic agents. Withdrawal from the treatment with, if somebody is on causating agents like amiodarone, tamoxifen and some other drugs, and definitely control of hyperlipidemia with diet or with hypolipidemic drugs. If the causative agent is parenteral nutrition associated, then modify the composition of your infusion, replace the glucose with the lipids. And if NASH because of undergoing surgery to treat obesity, then the reconstructive reconstructing intestinal transit to have the hepatic lesions. Some drugs also, like oral metronidazole, followed by a similar period without treatment, may be efficacious in reverting steatosis in some cases by the reduced inflammation and the fibrosis. Probiotics also interfere with the development of NASH at various levels, and they decrease in pro-inflammatory cytokines such as TNF-alpha. There are some cytoprotective agents like UDCA, SAM, S-adenosylmethionine, that is a anti-steatotic, anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, and anti-fibrotic properties. Alpha tocopherol, metadoxin also restores the hepatic glutathione concentration and act as a anti-fibrotic agent. Silmarin also same the antioxidant and antifibrogenic properties. Additional drugs are like ghrelin and pentoxifylline, and some potentially useful antioxidant agents which we are using are vitamin E and N-acetylcysteine. Now come to the patients who are already existing type 2 diabetes and NASH. We already discussed that the lifestyle is the cornerstone for treatment for the patient with obesity, type 2 DM, NAFLD. This is a omnius octet, which is a causative for the type 2 diabetic, and there are so many drugs which act through all the pathways. Some metformin randomized control trials shown that this metformin reduces the hepatic steatosis, necroinflammation, and fibrosis in a subgroup of a larger cohort of individuals with the NAFLD and fibrosis stage 0 to 4, but did not show this benefit compared to placebo in a placebo-controlled RCTs. These are the DPP-4 RCTs with the vilda-sita. The only vildagliptin reduces the MRI-assessed liver fat content compared to placebo, and that's why this drug class does not decrease body weight nor improve cardiovascular outcomes. These are the GLP-1 receptor agonist RCTs. 3 studies have been reported mixed effect of the liraglutide on the MRI-based liver fat content. The one study showed a reduction from baseline, and another showed that the liraglutide in combination with the metformin showed a similar reduction in fat content as sitagliptin or insulin glargine in combination with the metformin. But final study showed that there is no effect compared to the placebo. GLP-1 receptor, the only tirzepatide and novel dual agonist of GLP-1 and GIP, which is more effective than the dulaglutide regarding glycemic control and weight loss, which improves the surrogate marker for the NASH and is now undergoing further testing in NASH. The SGLT2 RCTs, canagliflozin has no changes, whereas DEPA was effective in reducing liver fat content either in combination with N3-carboxylic acid or as a monotherapy. EMPHA also reduces liver fat content in type 2 diabetes with or without the NASH. The dual SGLT1 and the SGLT2 inhibitor, that is lecogliflozin, which blocks both intestinal and renal glucose absorption, seems to be equally potent as empagliflozin for improving glycemia and body weight in people with the type 2 DM and chronic heart failure, and is under investigation to treat the NASH with fibrosis. PPAR agonist randomized control trial shows that the data agonist is conflicting, and given the current adverse effect profile, it may not be recommended for routine use in NAFLD, especially in those without coexisting the type 2 diabetes. If causative is your liver content, because these deposits are associated with a higher intensity of your liver damage in NASH, so that's why repeated phlebotomies might prevent the development of the lesion, delay their evolution, and even reduce or eliminate those already established. And finally, if somebody has developed the cirrhosis, then the liver transplantation is the only treatment. Few words about the newer therapy for the NASH. Lipotoxicity based targets. The progression from steatosis to NASH may be determined by the accumulation of lipotoxic intermediate of triglyceride synthesis and or lipolysis. The pharmacological inhibition of ACC, acyl coenzyme carboxylase, is another attractive approach to control the fatty acid synthesis in lipogenic tissues. Modulation of nuclear transcription factors are also believed to have a therapeutic potential for the treatment of NASH. One is a farnesenoid X receptor agonist. The hepatic expression level of this FXR is inversely correlated with the severity of disease in patients with the NASH, and this FXR activation affects bile acid production, hepatic lipogenesis, cholesterol synthesis, and glucose homeostasis, and protects hepatocytes against bile acid induced cytotoxicity. Another one is the obeticholic acid we are using. Next is tropifexor, that is LJN 452. Next is peroxisome proliferator activated receptors, are a group of nuclear receptors which are expressed in the liver, adipose tissue, heart, skeletal muscle and kidney, and transcriptionally regulate multiple metabolic processes including the beta oxidation, lipid transport and the gluconeogenesis. Another PPAR is a elafibranor, and it is a PPAR alpha delta agonist known to regulate the lipid and insulin metabolism in the NASH and NAFLD. Another one is saroglitazar, which has been shown to improve lipid and glucose parameters by predominant PPAR alpha and moderate the PPAR gamma agonist activity. The thyroid hormone receptor beta is also known to be highly expressed in the hepatic cells, and it plays a key role in the regulation of metabolic pathway which are known to be damaged in NASH, and evidence indicate that NASH may be caused by hepatic hypothyroidism, which is higher in patients with the NASH. The drug resmetirom is a thyroid hormone receptor, and incretins we have already discussed. And cytokines, yes, these are the cell signaling molecules produced by a variety of cells in the body, including the liver cells. Lipid accumulation and inflammation are crucial in the NAFLD. Therefore, these may play a key role in the pathogenesis of NAFLD by stimulating hepatic inflammation, steatosis, cell apoptosis and necrosis, and by the inducing fibrosis. TNF alpha, it's also a pro-inflammatory cytokine secreted by monocyte, macrophage, neutrophil and T cells, and such as the adipose tissue, neural tissue and endothelium. The TGF beta is an immunosuppressive and pro-fibrotic cytokine. It blocks the overactive inflammatory signaling and disrupts signaling that activates stellate cells, thereby targeting both the inflammation and the fibrogenesis. Interleukin 11, a recent study showed that the neutralizing antibody which block this IL-11 signaling cause reduction in the fibrosis, steatosis, hepatocyte apoptosis and the inflammation in mice with diet-induced liver, steatosis and fibrosis. So they also reported that hepatocyte damage is prevented or reversed by the genetic or antibody-mediated inhibition of IL-11. So I'll be summarizing that type 2 diabetes is also one of the strongest risk factor for the faster progression of NAFLD to advanced fibrosis or cirrhosis. However, the link between the NAFLD and type 2 DM is more complex than the previously believed, and strong evidence indicate that the NAFLD is associated with an approximate two-fold higher risk of developing type 2 diabetes, irrespective of your obesity and other common metabolic risk factors. And this risk parallels the severity of NAFLD, such that patients with more advanced stage of liver fibrosis are at an increased risk of incidence of type 2 diabetes. And although there is no approved therapy for the treatment of NASH, pharmacological agents currently available to treat diabetes that could potentially be useful for the management of NASH. And finally, on the behalf of Epicon Organizing Committee, I welcome you all for the Epicon 2022 at Jaipur. That will be a pure physical conference in the month of March from 10 to 13 March. Thank you for patience hearing.